You get plenty of coverage of Oklahoma State football. You think you hear all the noise coming from Gallagher-Iba Arena when you get your Cowboy basketball news. But you don't.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
And there's a couple of Jordans here to fix just that. This is the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast.
This could be a podcast. Anyone with a computer can make one.
Here are your hosts, Jordan Keene and Jordan Bishop.
Welcome back into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Jordan and Jordan here with you as usual. This is episode 21, I want to say. 21, I believe this is. And moving right along here on the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Happy to have you along with us, Jordan and Jordan, taking you through the Cowgirl week that is going to be in sports, and a really good weekend that was, other than softball, which we'll get into. But again, you have to temper expectations for that series that they had against Oklahoma. We'll get into plenty today. Coming up in the middle of the program, Katarina Stresnakova joined us and had a good interview with her. That runs about 20 to 25 minutes, somewhere in there. It was a good interview there with her. Thankfully, we're very appreciative of her sitting down with us, since she's extremely busy this week, finishing up finals and then hopping on a plane, I think, just about as we speak. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon, so just about as we speak, hopping on a plane, heading down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Yeah, it's going to be a big weekend for the Cowgirl Tennis team. We'll talk about, in a little bit how they did last weekend in the regional, but first year, the super regional round, talked a bit about, with Katie about how she kind of wishes that they stayed with in previous years where at Sweet 16 they'd be going down to Orlando, home nationals, but now you have the super regional round heading to the number 2 seed North Carolina team they've already faced. So you have some familiarity there. They obviously don't want to repeat what happened last time to them, so it's going to be a bit of I don't know if it's going to be a revenge match, but very familiar. So let's see how that goes coming up this weekend. But maybe the Cowgirls can pull it upset. We'll see. But it's a very busy week, like you mentioned.
We will get to tennis preview, tennis review coming up here in just a second. We'll touch on tennis right before we get into the interview, and then when we come out, we will talk a little bit about the softball weekend that was, and how that program is doing, and what's coming up for the softball team this weekend down in OKC. But first, we'll start off with women's golf. We told you that this team was probably not going to get a regional berth. They did not get a regional berth. But down in Norman, Liana Bailey and Han-Swan Yu were down there competing as individuals. And I think a pretty special weekend for them, all things considered, especially for Liana Bailey. Now, I think it'll be easy for a freshman to say, you know what, I kind of blew it down the stretch, but she shouldn't look at it like that. Like, it's going to be, I'm sure she's a competitor, and that's how she's going to be disappointed that she bogeyed 2 of the final 5 holes. And that's kind of what rises to the top. She starts second hole with a double bogey and finishes with a couple bogeys down the stretch, and that costs her a chance to go to the national championships. But I mean, you look at what her and to a certain extent Han-Swan Yu were able to do. She was tied for 8th. Yu was tied for 17th when everything was said and done. This was a 96-person field, and you have to be pretty proud of your performance, considering the fact, 1, you're a freshman, and 2, I mean, the conditions were tough. I mean, they got a ton of rain over the course of the week. First day did not play like the second day. Second day, they had all the rain that night when all the tornadoes were ripping through. So third day played not even close to the first 2 days. So it was tough conditions. Second day, she shot her and Yu tied for the second best score on the course. So, I mean, it would be easy to look back at it and be a little bit disappointed with the result. And I guess my point is you can't be a totally results-based oriented this year. You got to look at the week as a whole and realize this was 3 pretty good days of golf when all things are considered, even for you, who wasn't really in contention at all. But, I mean, she was still right there. I think only a couple strokes behind Bailey. And like I said, like 9 spots behind her. Like, it was tight up at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah. This was a microcosm of their entire season. Obviously, you want to look at it and say, well, ultimately you fell short. You didn't live up to the expectations, or what you want to do for this program, Oklahoma State. But you got to look at the bright side, the silver lining. And you mentioned that moving day on day 2, they were blistering through this course. They were showing that, hey, whenever we're playing right and we're playing to our potential, we're a really good duo. and that dude is going to be here for a long time in Stillwater. So obviously you want one of them to at least make it to Arkansas for nationals, but I think you can look at this and say, hey, we have a lot to work on still, obviously, like we know all season, but we have a lot of positives to build off here, especially for Liana Bailey.
Yeah, and for Bailey, I mean, it would be easy for people to look at, and, you know, when I gave an update yesterday on the radio side of things, it was she had a 3-stroke lead with 5 holes to play. And, you know, you can take a look at the negative side and say, like, you know, she ended up coming up short. But let's give some credit to Virginia Tech's Amanda Hollinsworth. She birdied 2 of the final 3 holes. It's not like she was just standing pat waiting for someone to – I mean, she was making moves, and I'm sure, you know, I have no idea – I would assume there's probably not a ton of scoreboards out there or leaderboards or stuff to tell you. But, I mean, you got to be able – you know, you got to give her a ton of credit as well. Even if Bailey had no idea that was going on, I mean, she was still playing really well down the stretch, and that's who ended up taking that 3rd spot was Hollinsworth. So credit both these girls and the way they were able to perform this weekend. Give you, just in case you were wondering, Texas ended up advancing as the top team in the regional. They beat Wake Forest by 9 strokes, Texas 10 under. Wake Forest 1 under, Florida, Purdue, Arizona State, and Ole Miss. So there's only 4 regionals on the women's side, so 6 teams go, top 3 advance on the individuals. As we told you, Liana Bailey 1 stroke out. She was 2 under on the weekend, and like I said, the second best score on the course with a 4 under on Tuesday. So good for her, good for Han Swan Yu as well, who was 1 over on the tournament. And I mean, you take things into account, they were right in contentions down the stretch. So I think a lot of positives to take away from this week, even though, as you said, you look at it at the surface, just like the season, it's a failure probably. But you have to look at it and say, well, I mean, look back to the Big 12 championships. This team was contending when they shouldn't have been. You know, according to the whole season long, according to how they've played, this team really wasn't a contender, and they were able to contend down the stretch. So I think that bodes well for their future. So wanted to touch on that. OSU track and field, they got it done on and off the track. I had this in my sports update the other day. They 22 honorees for academic all Big 12 for the Cowboys and 31 for the Cowgirls. So you combine that's 53 total. And the number that got me was 18. That 18 athletes on this team gonna finish off the year with a 4.0. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Just looking at the list yesterday, and they announced that all the sports Oklahoma State is in, and the way they done it. And I think the past 3 years for track, and I think for softball, it's been a perfect APR. I think golf, they've had it for like 18 out of the past 19 years, something like that, something crazy. So it just shows that these athletes are taking care of it off the course and showing that, hey, we're the definitive student athlete. So, you know, student first, athlete second, and they're doing it off the course and on the course.
Yeah. 7 teams. They broke a school record of APR for the perfect 1,000. Men's cross country, women's. Men's cross country. I had this right yesterday. Men's cross country, both track and field. No, it was both cross countries. Women's and men's cross country, women's track and field. Both golf teams, women's and men's golf, and as you said, men's golf's done it recently quite a bit. Softball and men's tennis. Those are the 7 teams. So congratulations to everyone that was involved with that. But yeah, as you said, very impressive and very much so encapsulating what a student athlete is supposed to be. So wanted to mention that. Speaking of which, one of the 4.0ers, I guess you'd call them, for the women's academic All Big 12. Was Sinclair Johnson. She was one that's going to finish off the year with 4.0, and we've been talking about her all season long as far as track and field because she's done some special things. Heading into Big 12, she's the defending 1,000-meter run champion. She'll want to defend that 1,000 meters from in February from the indoors. So that's what she's going to want to do. But she's also probably going to be a player in the 1,500 meters because she's ranked number 1 in the country in that. So she's obviously an incredibly talented runner and gets it done on the off the track as well. So looking forward to the Big 12 this weekend. Couple of names to highlight. We highlighted Sinclair Johnson, what she's going to want to do. Obviously, she's going to be in several events that we would expect her to compete well in. Ariana Ballner, she is the only returning conference champion from a year ago, according to these notes, and she was the 1,500 meter champion. So again, that's where Sinclair Johnson's really good. And by the way, other returning teammate Molly Sugaru, who is a senior, she's going to have a chance here to also at 1,500s to also perform well as well. So, I mean, a ton of inter-squad competition and a ton of chances here to put yourself at the top of the Big 12 podium.
Yeah, this is what we talk about in tennis. We talk about it in softball. Any time where you have somebody on your team, let's look at the men's golf team with Victor Hovland and Matthew Wolf. Anytime you have somebody on your team that is already a champion and you're right there neck and neck, it just makes you even better and puts you to another level. So that just, I think, is going to overall make this Cowgirl team perform better on the course, having those type of accolades, because they have obviously the national competition where you want to do good for your school, but you have the individual competition in between yourselves where you're, hey, I want to be better than you. You have that, who's going to be the number one in the clubhouse. So I think that's pretty cool what they have there.
Record-breaking season. Want to go over this because I thought this was interesting when I was, kind of preparing for sports updates and stuff like that, looking at this press release. Allie Stern broke the women's pole vault record last weekend. Whose record did she break? Her teammate Alyssa White, who said it earlier this year. Alyssa White, a Stillwater native, a name probably a lot of people around here remember, and she beat out a couple of former standout athletes as far as the pole vault. So she broke that record. We told you about Sinclair Johnson breaking her record that she did. Bailey Golden from Choctaw broke the school record in the pentathlon. Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Pentathlon with a score of 3,564. I mean, so this season has been. I mean, there was a couple on the guys' side that also broke records as well. But this season for both sides, but even for the women's side, has been really, really good as far as setting the bar. And by the way, it's not like this is a program with no history. This is a program with a lot of history. A lot of these records, some probably thought were unattainable. And this team on both sides, but, we are a Cowgirl podcast, so focusing on the women's side, this is a team, breaching some pretty spectacular records.
Yeah, Coach Smith is doing a great job over there. I think he also, we talked about on this podcast a lot about who's going to be the first to bring home that team title for the women's side. And we'll talk about Chris Young, obviously, Kenny Gajewski, Colin Carmichael. Dave Smith's up there. So he might, have something to say about, hey, I can bring home that banner too. So he's obviously got some great athletes in there right now who are just breaking records, like you mentioned, that we thought were almost unbreakable. So he's got something really good going on over there on the women's side and the men's side. So hopefully we'll see what happens this postseason.
Some news that maybe got swept under the radar. I tried to push this out as much as I could because this is obviously not a sport that gets a ton of coverage. We've talked about it all season long, though. Equestrian. Fresno State going to join the Big 12. I think that makes a lot of sense. Gives them a four-team conference. So, again, in postseason play, that gives you – and I think Fresno State has probably been – I don't know for Oklahoma State specifically. I can look it up really quickly. I'm not sure if it's been on the schedule for a lot of these teams. But Equestrian – it's not like there's 300 equestrian teams in the country. So I would assume that, a lot of these teams – Fresno State was on the schedule. So I don't think it's like Fresno State's going to be a name that equestrian teams in the regular season are necessarily – Fresno State, that's a new name. Like, they're going to end up playing very similar opponents in the regular season. But this is obviously for postseason play specifically. When they go to postseason play, there's now 4 teams instead of having the 3-team round robin. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know if they'll just go to a Final Four kind of deal and just play it out from there, or if they'll try to do a round robin. Probably too many teams to do that now. So, but nonetheless, it's always good. And also for anyone that might care, gymnastics, rowing, obviously 2 sports that Oklahoma State does not have, but wrestling. They're going to add wrestling as well. So I know we don't cover wrestling because this is a Cowgirl podcast, but still, you're bringing in Fresno State as an affiliate school, and I think this makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, but also, probably most importantly for equestrian.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing from Coach Sanchez on what this does for you adding a team from California into this conference, because now that opens up a new recruiting pipeline maybe, and there's definitely talent over there. I think that overall it's going to be a great help. Anytime you add a team, I think it's going to be great, especially for Equestrian. We talked about that. We talked to Coach Sanchez last month about the sport growing and more teams. I think this is great that they're adding a team to the Big 12 that try and bolster the conference, get them back on the national stage, and I think it's great overall. I mean, obviously you're already playing them, so why not just add them to your conference?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And it was pretty much like they were pretty much in the Big 12 conference this year. Oklahoma State used them as a warm-up. No, just kidding. They beat them 14-5 to finish out the regular season here in Stillwater. So, yeah, I think that was one that maybe not too many people saw, but I think it's important to point that one out. So wanted to point that out. Let's talk here some tennis. We'll talk tennis, kind of preview our conversation that we had with Katie Stresnakova that will be coming up here in just a second. But first of all, speaking here about the tennis team, I was out there last weekend. We'll play some sound from the post-match as well throughout this our conversation here. But, I mean, man, it was I kind of had to practice what I've been preaching, which is get out to I preach get out to soccer games. I've been to soccer games. I preach get out to softball games. I've been to softball games, plenty of softball games. And I've been saying get out to watch tennis. Well, I hadn't been to tennis matches. So I did have to get out there. I had to practice what I preach, and I'm going to be out there a lot more, I'll tell you that much. And Coach Young is right when he comes on, whether it be on the radio side or I think he even said it on our podcast as well. He says in post-match too, just come out once. Just try it. Yeah. I dare you to try it and say, I'm never coming back for another one. I dare you to try to do that. It's incredibly entertaining. Even if you don't like the singles, which some people think the singles is a little slow-paced, which I can understand that, you're going to get drawn in by the doubles. The doubles is fast-paced. It's really, really competitive, and there's a ton of emotion involved. Even when you get to singles, a ton of emotion. But just getting that match going, trying to get a stranglehold on that momentum, just a really fun atmosphere, and obviously this is one of the best facilities in the country. So I'm sure if I went to somewhere else, I would probably be a little bit disappointed. But this weekend was a true eye-opener for me. I had to like I said, practice what I preach. So I was out there, had a ton of fun covering these two matches against Central Arkansas and then Miami. And, Miami, Oklahoma State, that was the match of the round for as far as the round of 32 went. That was the premier match. No other match went to I believe that was the only one that used all 7 points. So just a true testament to the toughest regional that a lot of people thought was Oklahoma State's, and true testament to the team moving out of that.
Yeah, that's what Slam Tennis put out, that was the toughest one. And I heard, obviously I was down covering softball, but I heard that that match was pretty heated between both sides. And I like what you said about what CY says, come out there and try, because doubles, it is great. I actually prefer singles. I like I'm a purist. I love to write and see kind of the human emotion, and tennis is such an emotional game. Just to see the one-against-one, we talk about that with Katie here in a little bit because she's a psychology major. Talk about what goes on in the mind. It's such a mental game, and you get to see that play out in front of you. And it's really awesome. It has a lot of drama in this sport. And Saturday sounds like it was probably going to be a one for the ages based on how it ended. So hopefully that sets them up for this week. Like we mentioned earlier, North Carolina, really great team. You already faced them once, but having this emotional high from what you did here in front of your home crowd, you got to be feeling pretty good going into Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I would certainly think so. And to your point about it being a really close match, this is as close as it can be. Doubles point went to tiebreaker in the finals to the finals match to seal off the doubles point. That went to tiebreaker. And then you talk about singles. The only thing that could have made it closer was if Marina would have taken it to the third set. Yeah. But my goodness, this was, as you said, the emotions were just charged up from, obviously, it's postseason. Anything postseason sports is charged up. The thing that you referenced, obviously being a little bit contentious, was the Miami coach. She did not like some of the cheering that was going on. And Oklahoma State fans cheered a little bit early on a point because they thought it was going to be a point. And this was my point. This was my thing that I've been saying all week long, And I asked Coach Young about this on Monday when we had him on the radio side. Look, your fans are extremely knowledgeable about this game. Everyone that's at Greenwood Tennis Center is really knowledgeable, and if the ones that aren't knowledgeable, they make an effort to learn. They want to know about the sport. I gave an example was John Smith was there, wrestling coach, Olympian, and he didn't understand something, so he came over to me and Jeff Hopper, and he saw my media thing, and he goes, "Hey, do you guys know, like, what if they go to a third set, what goes on, or if it's 6-6 when it's over, what?" I thought it was a race to 6. Why is it still going 5-6? Well, you have to win by 2, otherwise it's 6-7. That's how it finishes out. So everyone that's there, if they don't know, they're making an effort to learn. And that's what I don't get with the Miami coach getting all worked up, because it looked like the point was going to be won by Marina. And it was an incredible shot by the Miami kid to return it. So you respect that. And as soon as they returned it, the Oklahoma State fans shut up. They quieted back down. So to Oklahoma State fans' credit, they know the game. It's not like they're belligerently cheering just blindly. They know when to cheer, when not to cheer. That was just a freak accident of one where it was like everyone there, literally everyone there, thought the point was over. And so she freaks out, stops the point. They end up not giving the point to Marina for some reason, and that's a whole different conversation. We don't need to get into it, but I just thought it was, the crowd was phenomenal. And here we'll play what CY said afterwards, because obviously Jason Elmquist, your boss and my partner on the Sports Drive, asked the question was, obviously got contentious there with Miami fans, but overall, what did you like about the crowd today? And here's what CY had to say.
Oh, we wouldn't have won without the crowd. There's no question that the crowd here makes a difference, and I think that's why kids come to play at OSU, is to play in front of crowds like this, and that's what I told the other guys. Like, this is why you come to Oklahoma State, and if you're a recruit and you want to play in a program that really matters and gets fan support and gets fans that are going to cheer for you, come here.
So there you go. Yeah, I agree with him. This would have been an extremely tough match to win if the crowd wasn't the way it was, because there was a huge home court advantage there. There really was. So I just thought that was incredible, and you've seen it more times than I have. This is not like an outlier. No. This is what happens every time over there at the Greenwood Tennis Center, and every single match, whether it's regular season or postseason, seems to be growing every single time.
Yeah. One that I drew back to this year, they had UCLA in town. It was packed. It was standing room only there inside because it was an indoors match. And then Bedlam obviously being outdoors and just the sweep against the rivals. And it was such a big crowd there too. And that's when Coach Roy got into it with the officials on his crowd needs to be able to cheer to grow the game. And I think each time it's just growing every year. That's what we talked about with Katie. I think next year, whenever they obviously have nationals here, it's going to be even bigger for the sport. Hopefully people around the sport see it because it's not going to be on the Tennis Channel now. We saw that released this week through your partnership with the Tennis Channel. Hopefully other people see that. Other programs say, hey, they have these fans out in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We can get fans here to come watch this. It's easy to understand game once you watch it. So hopefully that this is going to be something that's a movement in college tennis, because it's just a fun sport to watch, and it's even funner when you have a big crowd there to watch it with it.
Well, that's my thing is when they do have the Tennis Channel in town, that's what I'm excited about, is to show, so Stillwater can showcase that it knows tennis, and it does, and that's really exciting in my opinion, that they get to showcase that. I also have some sound from Sofia Blanco here, talking about her doubles team, and obviously a big upset of a top 13 or so, I think at the time Miami's doubles team was. Big upset this weekend at number 1 doubles, and they won that going away. I think they were down 3-2, and Miami snuck one late, but 6-4 wasn't even that close, and they were the first doubles match to finish off. And then you talk the rest of doubles. Well, before we get to the rest of the doubles, here's the sound from Sophia talking about the relationship with her partner, Catherine Gullaher, and how they're playing at the moment.
Catherine played really, really good, and we are in a really good moment right now. We're understanding each other pretty well. We are executing our plays, and I think that's a really good win for us.
So there you go, and they're up from 27 to 25 in the rankings, so they're still creeping up, and rightfully so. They're playing some incredible tennis right now. Didn't play their best tennis against Central Arkansas, but didn't necessarily need it against Central Arkansas. So they're going to need to be phenomenal this weekend. But I want to before I get your take on it, doubles as a whole. CY talked yesterday on the radio side about how three doubles has actually been probably their most consistent all year long with Tammy and B. Those two have been phenomenal. They had a great weekend. I mean, B she had a phenomenal weekend, and she's now OSU's second-ranked singles player. She moved up, I believe, ahead of Lisa. So she'll, as far as rankings go, she's higher than Lisa. Lisa's still in the top 100 though. So it's really, or Marina, I think, is who she moved up ahead of. But, for doubles, it was getting this doubles two more aggressive. We saw that this weekend. I thought I was impressed. I think CY was impressed with number two doubles. And then number one doubles is, in postseason play, I think just having Sofia Blanco as one of the players will really settle Catherine down and hopefully get her into get her into the match, and they play off each other's strengths and weaknesses really well. So they're obviously, doubles is going to play a huge factor down in North Carolina. They're really going to need doubles one and probably doubles three, all three of them. But I think if doubles one and doubles three play to their absolute best, I think they can absolutely win the doubles point against a team that they lost it to earlier in the year.
Yeah, I really like how the doubles, as the lineup has shaked out, because obviously you want your speed and your power and that combination. I think the number one doubles right now with Sophie and Catherine, it's a lot of power. Obviously Sophie is such a long player, and Catherine brings a lot of athleticism to the court. I really like what they're doing right now. At the number two, Katie and Marina. Katie is a mix. She's a good mix of play. That's why she's the number one singles player. And so she brings speed and power. Marina brings that long frame. She has a lot of emotion. She can play with a lot of energy and power as well, so that's a good mix. Then you have a really good speedy lineup there with B and Tammy there that I like to see what they do, because they can, like you mentioned, you think they're the best right now because the way they play and the way they play off each other. You got to have a good, I guess, chemistry if you're playing doubles, and they obviously do. And so it's a good mix right now. It causes a lot of problems if you don't know them. So I think right now there isn't a point of any getting that doubles point, maybe stealing that from North Carolina, and that'd be all the momentum in the world if you want to get that started, because then, like we mentioned before, only going to get three after that in singles.
Well, that's the interesting part about tennis that I think some people, you'll look at, here I am, I'm on ITA's rankings, and if I were to go to doubles, I'd see two top 15 or two top 12 or whatever it is doubles teams for North Carolina, and I would say, well, there's no way they're gonna. But all it takes is one of those first two to upset them, and tennis is a way. And I'm not saying the three is an automatic win this weekend. It's not. Going on the road to play any tennis is tough, and you can't put any point in the bag right now. But the depth of this lineup, and we'll get to the depth of singles because that's obviously going to be the most crucial of all, but the depth even to doubles, if you can win that third doubles match, 1 and 2, just one of them has to have an upset, and we've seen the capabilities, even with doubles 2, we've seen the capabilities that these teams, these girls can do it, and I think that's so important when you're talking about needing 2 of 3. You don't got to sweep it to get the point. You just got to win 2 of 3, and I think when you break it down like that, if you have 2 that just play their best tennis, that's all you're asking for. Play your best tennis and see how it falls out, and I think we've seen some of the best tennis for this team these past couple weeks.
Yeah, and that's what we talked to Katie here in a second. I asked her about her being number one singles this year, and if she feels that playing the best teams, because they've played obviously the toughest schedule, and that's what I mentioned last week. They were underseeded, shouldn't have been a 15 seed, but hey, at least they played teams like this before that they know that they're going to be thrown into the fire. They're going to know what to expect when they go over to North Carolina. But playing those teams and challenging themselves have made them overall a better team. So I think right now they are playing their best tennis because they've been forced to play their best tennis to get to this point. So they have as good a shot as anybody has beaten North Carolina this weekend.
So moving over to singles, and obviously this is where it comes in. It's the grind and the depth of your team. That Coach Young's talked about a lot this year. This is where it's got to come in because McKenna Jones, number 5 in the country according to the ITA tennis rankings. She's for North Carolina. McKenna Jones, number 5. Number 7 is Alexa Graham, and then number 20. She fell a couple spots. Number 20, Sarah Devitilla, something like that. Devitilla. That's what we're going to go with, at least. You have 3 North Carolina tennis players who are, quote-unquote, better than Stresnakova, according to the rankings. So, I mean, rankings are rankings. I'm not going to say that anyone's better than anyone, but according to the rankings, they are ranked higher than three North Carolina tennis players, ranked higher than Stresnakova. So, I mean, that would be a little bit alarming, I guess, if you're an Oklahoma State fan. But the other thing you understand is that, down at the bottom, you've had B at number 4 playing extremely well. Marina at 3 even has played really, really well. Katie is always going, her record doesn't look good because she's playing number 1. She's playing against the number 1 team in the country several times a year. So, I mean, there's a reason that her record looks the way it does. And that's what you got to understand about tennis is that sometimes your best player, actually almost always, your best player doesn't have your best record because she's playing the best of the best. And unless you are 1, 2, or 3 in the country, generally your record doesn't look good there. So, but Sophie's been awesome at 5. 6 has been a little bit of a question mark with whether it's Tammy or Catherine, who they're going to throw out and how they perform. But this is where, if you get that doubles point, it kind of settles down to your singles. But this is a team that has better depth than it had last year when they lost to a Tulsa team here at home. So.
Yeah. I mean, I really like their singles lineup. We talked about their doubles, obviously. Singles lineup, I think, is really solid, even if it is whether it's Tammy or Catherine. Catherine, I really like what she's doing as a freshman. And she is somebody that I think we talked about on the radio earlier this week. She is going to be your next Victoria Oshkova. She's going to be your next Kat Adamovich. She's going to be the person that when she's a senior, she's going to be a program changer. I know I'm putting a lot of pressure on her, but she's lived up to it this year, and she's done really well. Obviously, we see a number one doubles team, and then she's doing well in singles, and that's why I think if you do happen to steal a doubles point, you can count on her to get a point for you. Marina usually grinds it out. And then either B, Lisa, Sophie, one of those, I think you don't have to rely on having Katie try to knock off one of these, whoever they put out there, those top 20 girls. So I think you'll be fine getting from the lower, the 4 through 6 in the singles. You can rely on them because of what they've shown you this year.
You certainly hope so, and that's going to be the big question is how do they perform going on the road, a couple younger players down there. But, I mean, B's played a lot of big matches. She's played a ton of big matches. Sophie, at the college level, has played a ton of big matches. And even at the youth level, a 5-star prospect for Catherine, she's played a ton of huge matches at the youth level. So these are players who, yes, they're playing tough competition. They're used to it. And that's the kind of talent, that's the kind of players that CY is getting in here. And it's a real testament to the job he's done recruiting. He's getting players in here that aren't afraid of these big moments.
Yeah, that's what he's doing, and we saw that who they're getting next year is she's a blue chip. She's not even a 5-star. She's a blue chip, one that's like top 10 in the country.
Yeah, I forget what recruiting ranking. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. But yeah, you're absolutely right. She is a blue chip. It's tennisrecruiting.net. It's Tennis Recruiting Network, and she is a blue chip. Yeah, she's somewhere in like the top 20 or something like that, blue chip. So yeah, above a 5-star. So for anyone out there that's a basketball or a football person, you can get higher than a 5-star. They're just hiding in the tennis world. So yeah, blue chip. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so I think overall, I know they're losing a big senior class this year in Sophie, Marina, and Katie, but the cupboard will not be bare. Next year they'll be good to go. Maybe it could be a bit of a year where they have to maybe just settle for a Sweet 16. This year they're actually wanting to strive past it, obviously. But the year after that, they'll be really good. Obviously, you want them to make the Elite Eight next year because you want them to be here in Stillwater for Nationals. So we'll see. But overall, I think, a very bright future based on what they've done and the foundation that this team continues to build every year.
No doubt about it. And by the way, I wouldn't necessarily bet against Coach Young, putting this team back into the national tournament on their home court next year. And once you get there, at home, anything's possible. So that'll be fun to watch that coming up next year. So as you mentioned, the Tennis Channel IT8, we just want to clarify this. If anyone, you mentioned it in passing, and I didn't really follow up with it like I should have. ITA and Tennis Channel going into a contract, or is it the ITA? USTA with the Tennis Channel into entering a contract for the next 3 years, which does include this year in Stillwater. So that's really exciting. I believe it's Orlando this year and 2 years from now, correct?
Yes, it's Orlando, then Stillwater, then Orlando again. Kind of like they're doing with golf, where it's in Arkansas this year, then it's going to be in Arizona State for 2 or 3 years, and I think they're going to try to get back to Stillwater. So it's a bit of a revolving door, but this is a right step for tennis, because we talked before about what golf has done, obviously, and we saw that last year here at Carson, the coverage they have. Tennis Channel being here and showing that will just open up for an even wider audience, and it gives it a bit more prestige. I don't know why, but it gives it a bit more prestige being on television, because you're like, oh, wow, this is a big deal. It's a big production event, so I think it's overall going to be a great deal going forward, and it's not just going to be this 3 years. It's going to be extended down the line. It's going to be a big deal soon.
No doubt about it. As of right now, 50 hours of live coverage coming up in the next 3 years. That shatters the record for postseason tennis coverage. I was talking to CY yesterday on the radio show. He said, yes, there has been live tennis coverage on ESPN. Used to have the rights, but they would just show the championship match. Now this is going to be the entire national championships. So that includes team from 8 to 1 and everything as far as individuals when it gets down to the nitty-gritty and individuals as well. So looking forward to that. By the way, we should mention Catherine Gulaher and Sofia Blanco, that doubles team, and then Katarina Stresnakova as a singles player. They are all headed to the individual side of the NCAA championships as well. So they'll be going to Orlando either way. They just hope to take their team along with them, and they're going to have a chance to do that. Going out to North Carolina, we caught up with Katie Stresnakova, and as you mentioned, I always ask you what we should listen for. I'm gonna give my piece first. Earlier you talked about this kind of being her transition, going from 6 to 1, and then you asked her about her major in the psychology and sports psychology, and she picked out 2 matches where she went through her own, kind of like what she was going through mentally through the matches. And that was fascinating to me, was listening to her kind of pick out like where she was during set by set and kind of pushing herself to win some matches that maybe some other players wouldn't have won because she had the right mindset about it. So that was really impressive to me, that she could just go back there and kind of put herself back in her shoes and say, this is what was going through my mind, this is how I fixed it.
Yeah. I think that was really cool. It makes you kind of feel a little bit old, because I've covered her entire career, college career, going back to that master run in Tulsa in 2016. So it feels kind of strange that this is her last run at it. But she talked a bit about how she came here and how she didn't really want to come play college tennis, but how there's a stigma, I guess, in Europe about going over there instead of going pro, and just sometimes you have to make decisions for yourself. And overall, just it's neat to hear that kind of side of things, and you don't really hear it. You think, okay, Coach Young went out and got somebody from Slovakia. Okay, you don't really know about it. Well, you see the kind of the reasonings behind why they're doing what they're doing. And also, I thought it was interesting how she became a tennis player, because she just saw a match, I think it was Roger Federer, on TV, and her dad thought it was a cool sport, and so she just started playing it then. So
part of the reason she's a tennis player is because tennis players dress nicely. So there you go. Listen in for the rest of that interview. This is a fun one. Tune in. A good one. We'll see on the other side to talk a little Cowgirl softball right after our conversation with Katarina Stresnakova over at the Michael and Ann Greenwood Tennis Center on the Triple Play Sports Podcast Network. Welcome into the Cowgirl Coverage Podcast. Jordan and Jordan with you, and now over at the Michael and Ann Greenwood Tennis Center here, and now joined by senior tennis player Katarina Stresnakova, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So obviously, exciting time for the team right now. You're headed, got to finish up finals, and then you're headed out to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to take on a team that you played already this year.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's the best time of the year right now, and I'm very excited that we get to play them again, because last time it didn't really go how we wanted, but right now I feel like we can get the win.
So what has this week been like? Obviously, you're going through finals. You're one of the players on the team with a 4.0 GPA too. So I mean, you take care of the classroom and the court. But what's this week been like? Your last time going through finals and then headed out for postseason.
Actually, I wish it would be last time, but I'm staying for my 5th year.
Okay.
So one more year. It's been a little bit stressful because I'm trying to finish good with school, and while playing tennis is a little bit difficult sometimes, but once I'm done tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm good and I'm ready to go.
So you got your last final. You said you're going to pack and head out for North Carolina. What has the preparation process been like, balancing between school and then preparing for a good North Carolina team?
It's always good to get a little bit of rest, like 1 or 2 days, to just relax, refocus, focus on school a little bit, and then start again. We had a good practice today. We did some good workout and just keeping it pretty light, but still being very focused.
What has the focus of practice been like this week, preparing for this team that you've already seen, but obviously a very good team?
I don't think there's anything different really. Like, we just need to come out and try to play our best tennis. We have no pressure. We are the underdog here. So as long as we enjoy it, I think anything can happen, and hopefully we can win.
This is the first year of the super regional format. You get to go to their place and play. What's that like? Usually in recent years, Sweet 16, you'd be down in Orlando already. You already be at the Nationals. But what's it like going there and playing the Sweet 16 on an opposing court?
Well, I don't know yet, but we'll see. I mean, I personally like when we go to Sweet 16 to the final, like the destination, because it's just a different kind of atmosphere, I think. I mean, I don't know yet, but I'm still very excited to go to North Carolina and then hopefully go to Orlando.
What's this season been like? You're the number one singles player on this team, and you've played some great players throughout the course of the year. Even back in, going back to the Miami match, it's the number one singles player in the country, and you had some success against her. So just talk about like what this season's been like for you at the number one spot, and then for doubles as well. You and Marina have kind of formed a good partnership throughout the season, and it seems like you're playing some of your best doubles tennis right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit difficult at the beginning. It's a little bit difficult to adapt when you are going from playing 5-6 and then 3 to number one player, because you are expected to kind of lead the team and being a senior at the same time. It was a little bit of a change, but I feel like once I got used to it and I relaxed a little bit, I started to playing some really good tennis, and obviously you win some and you lose some because you're just playing the best players in the country, but just staying very motivated and trying to finish the season strong. And when it comes to doubles, I just love to play with Marina. We connect really well on a personal level, so it's really easy to play doubles with her. We can support each other very good. If some of us is like not having a good day, we can just cheer each other up and play some good doubles. So yeah.
What's the senior? I mean, you're part of a really impressive senior class. You and Marina and Sophia. Just talk about all the seniors on this team and the kind of the relationship you guys have had formed here at Oklahoma State throughout the years, and then how special this last year's been. It's
been really special. I really can't imagine to kind of finish my eligibility with anyone else, because we are really good friends, and I feel like, I mean, it's easier to kind of lead the group with other two people that they know what they are doing. And I don't know, they're like my really good friends, and we are having a lot of fun, and we really enjoy it.
So you mentioned you start off in singles at 5-6, moved to the 3. What overall was the pressure moving up to the 1 spot this year and having everybody depend on you, like you talked about, because they all look up to you to lead them from that spot?
Yeah, it was a different kind of pressure that I haven't experienced yet, because I was always just trying to match the level of my teammates and just trying to always get to number 1 spot. And once you get it, maybe you get a little bit scared and like surprised that like, wow, this is a little bit different than I expected. It's actually a different kind of pressure. So it took me a few matches to adapt, but right now I feel like I deserve it. And I'm just trying to embrace it and just trying to play free and have fun.
Do you feel playing other teams' number ones has brought your game to another level, and you're playing the best tennis you think you've played so far this season?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's been always like that. My tennis is getting better towards the end of the season. I'm not sure why, but that's how it is. I guess I relax a little bit more and just honestly, like when it comes to my tennis, it's everything. Like as long as I play free and I'm having fun, I'm playing the best tennis of my life.
Obviously, this is some of the best tennis that has happened here at Oklahoma State under Coach Young. Talk about, he recruited you, right? So, I mean, talk about that process, what drew you to Oklahoma State, and then what you think your growth has been like here as a player.
So actually, the old assistant coach, Matt Manassi, recruited me. I was his first recruit, and I visited 2 other schools. Actually, I was supposed to visit, but then I missed my flight, so I just visited North Carolina, actually NC State, and I missed my visit to Texas. And then I came here, and I really liked the NC State. There was a Slovakian girl on the team, and I was almost decided to go there. And then I just came here, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give it a shot. And I met Coach Young and met my old teammates, and honestly just felt like home, and I just felt like really welcomed here, and just had a feeling that this is gonna be the right place for me, and I feel like it was the right decision. And yeah, I forgot what was the question.
Just like the development over your 4 years here. I was reading an article earlier this week about when you were a freshman, and just kind of Coach Young said you were a little intimidated and kind of worrying about the other courts, and just telling you just focus on yourself and grow your own game. How do you feel you've been able to do that here?
I honestly feel like I have come a long way since my freshman year. I was just a scared little girl when I came here. It was really difficult for me. It was change, like haven't been home, like far away from home for that long. So I think I have come a long way. I really started to focus more on myself, and Coach Young taught me how to work hard, and that work hard pays off. So, and here I am, like number 1. So I guess he was right.
So what was the reasoning for wanting to leave and come to the United States for college, and instead of just going off and playing pro like a lot of people in Europe usually do?
I mean, I did play pro for a little bit, but tennis is a very expensive sport. Costs a lot of money when you have to travel with your coach and pay for hotels and flights and everything. So the first reason was just money, and I'm gonna be honest. At first, I didn't want to come. I didn't want to be that far away from my family and friends. It's totally different world, so it's scary. I'm not gonna lie, but once I decided, I think it was the best decision of my life, because I was an average player on the pro tour, and I feel like my tennis developed so much over the last 3 years that I might give it a shot again, but it all depends on finances and trying to find sponsoring for my further playing. So we'll just see what happens. I'm just kind of open-minded right now.
So why tennis? I mean, talking to Sophie, she mentioned that soccer was so big down there in Argentina, that she was kind of with a different way with tennis. But what was the reasoning for you to come into this sport and want to play this sport?
This is actually really funny because none of the people in my family are like they like sports or anything. They're all like very focused on arts and this kind of stuff. So I was a little bit different. I was a very active kid and just liked different sports. And one day my parents saw tennis on the TV and Roger Federer was playing at Wimbledon, and then they were watching just kind of some women's match, and my dad was like, wow, like this sport just looks like really nice, and it's outdoors, and they dress nice, and it's like a good activity. So then like they signed me in for like a tennis course, and then after like a year, the coaches told me that I'm advancing faster than the other kids and then I'm talented, and my parents had no idea what did they sign up for, honestly. They didn't know how much money and effort it's gonna be. But right now I'm pretty sure they are very proud of me, and they know that I'm very happy here, so it was worth it.
Well, was there ever ever a desire to go into any other sport? Or what are kind of the biggest sports over there in
Slovakia?
Yeah.
The biggest sport is probably hockey and soccer, I guess, but it's a little bit different in Europe than it is in US, because I feel like people in US they're interested in many sports, and they usually play a lot of sports when they're younger. In Europe, it's more like if you are good in one sport, you're just trying to be the best in one sport. So when I was younger, I have been skating a little bit, swimming, skiing. I still like to do all those things, but tennis was just the one thing I enjoyed the most. So.
Your hometown, Novodinka. You probably always say it wrong, but it's near the border, near the Czech border. What's overall like growing up there? What's the town like, and do you see yourself maybe moving back there someday?
Actually, I'm from Bratislava, which is the capital city, and then we moved for a little bit to Nová Dedinka, which is 30 minutes away from the capital city. It's a small village, but I have been going to the capital city for practices and school basically every day. So it's like a really, really small town, but it was nice. After my parents got divorced, like a couple years ago, we just moved a little bit closer to Bratislava. So I'm not at home as much right now, so it's just like I really feel home here right now, so I enjoy it here. But I mean, I love Slovakia, and I always like to go back, but I can see myself probably living somewhere else because I can get more opportunities to work and just advance farther in my life, I guess.
You mentioned that pro tennis might be in your future career. You might give it another shot. If not, what do you wanna do with yourself if it's not pro tennis?
So I would like to say that I'm pretty good with school too, and I really enjoy it. I'm doing a double degree in psychology, sociology, and I really enjoy sport psychology. So I was thinking, I'm taking an extra year to just kind of figure out, but I'm really interested in sports psych, so I might go to grad school and focus on sports psychology, and I'll probably coach some and kind of just combine sports psychology with coaching, maybe nutrition and things like that.
Is that the same thing Sophie is majoring in, or similar?
Yeah, she's doing a psychology major and then I guess management, like some minor or something like that, and she's interested in industrial psychology. So we're a little bit different, but yeah. Very similar.
Still got that psychology.
Yeah, took some classes together.
What intrigues you about that field and wanting to go into that field of sports psychology?
I just think that mental part when it comes to sports is just so important. A lot of people don't really realize, but it's honestly a mental game. Like whenever you play the highest level of tennis or any other different sport, it's all about the mind because the players on the highest level are honestly the same level, and there are just little small differences. It's about how you handle it in your head and how you deal with stressful situations, and I feel like sport psychologists can help a lot nowadays with these problems. I'm seeing a sports psychologist too, just to get my mind right, and it's helping me quite a lot, so I want to help other people and other athletes in my future too.
Tennis is such a mental game. It's one-on-one. Evaluate yourself, if you will, about when you're down, I guess, in a set, and you're trying to come back, and it just seems nearly impossible. Well, overall, how do you find the confidence and just dig down deep that you tell yourself you can come out this hole and win it?
I actually can think about 2 matches this season. I was really miserable when I was playing UCF, and I'm still struggling a little bit with my ankle from the surgery, and sometimes when the pain gets in your head, it's a little bit difficult to like dig yourself out of it, and I was just losing very bad, but then I saw that my team is depending on me, and all I was thinking was basically like, okay, just leave everything you have on the court and just think point by point, because what happens to me sometimes is like I'm thinking too much far ahead, and whenever you think more about the outcome, you can control the present, and then it doesn't really go well. So whenever I'm struggling, I'm just trying to think point by point and just kind of see what happens, and usually it's turning out really, really well. Another match was against TCU when we were away. I was 1-5 down in the final set, and it seems almost impossible to come back, and I was just like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna go from point to point, and I managed to win. So I guess whenever I know how to do it, it's worth it.
Just talk about outside of tennis. Like, what do you like to do, like, around Stillwater? Is there anything, like, outside of tennis, outside of season that you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, Stillwater is a little small town. There's not much to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Stillwater. As a college town, it's great. I really enjoy it. The truth is, I don't really have much free time, so it's not like. But I really like shopping, so whenever I just want to relax for a little bit, I go to some boutiques and just walk around. And I have a dog too, so I go for a walk with my dog, or just meet with my friends, go to some restaurants to eat, or go to movies, I guess. Nothing special usually. My being a student athlete, it's all about just schoolwork, practices, workouts, and that's it.
We talk to pretty much everyone on this podcast about the growth of women's sports and some of the opportunities that are becoming available. Yesterday, they confirmed that starting this year, they're going to broadcast the championships of tennis on the Tennis Channel. What is it like to be a part of the growth of women's sports? And then just like, what do you see here? Because obviously, since the Greenwood Tennis Center's been around, the crowds just continue to grow here for both men's and women's. But, obviously, women's, there was a ton of people there this weekend for the Miami and Central Arkansas game.
No, I mean, it's really amazing, and I think our head coach is doing a wonderful job with getting people to come to our matches. He's really good with these things, and I think honestly that people just enjoy us playing because they know that we are gonna leave our hearts on the court and we are gonna do our best to win. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but yeah, I mean, I'm just really happy. I think college tennis is great, and I wish more people back in Europe would understand that whenever you go to college, it doesn't mean that you are done with pro tennis. Look at Danielle Collins, who was a top player in the country, and now she's top player on the pro tour, so nothing is impossible. And I'm just very happy that people are becoming more aware, and and they enjoy it.
You're going to be going to Orlando for individually, just overall. I know hopefully we can get this win this week and go as a team and have everybody out there else with you. But what's it going to be like playing? I know it's not your last year here, but your last year playing, trying to bring a title, an individual title, back to Stillwater.
I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, I'm going to go back again to just think from match by match. I mean, obviously the goal is to bring the title, but I honestly believe that my best results come from when I just focus on every match, every point, and just playing free and relaxed. And I mean, I'm very excited to go there because it's my last year. So I don't feel much pressure. I feel more excited about the opportunity.
How excited are you? I know it's your last year playing, but next year it's all coming here. The Nationals going to be here. You'll be around. What's it going to be like watching that, seeing the program that you've been a part of and seeing what Coach Young has built to actually bring the national championships here to the Greenwood Center?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit pissed that that I don't get to play. Because, there is nationals here, and I believe that regionals or some other or Big 12 tournament, something is in Stillwater
Big
too.
12, I think, will be back.
So everything is in Stillwater now when I don't get to play. But, yeah, I'm very excited for the girls. I think it's amazing. I think this is one of the best facilities in the country, so I can't imagine better place where to host nationals, honestly.
I had one interesting question that you brought up, that your family was very artsy. What are they, musical inclined? Painting. What's you think of that when you think of arts? Or do you have any art sides to you? Do you like to do something in your spare time?
My dad was a musician. He played on trumpet.
Okay.
And now he's working in something else because he didn't get a lot of money for it. That's just the truth in Europe. And my mom used to be an actor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's not doing it either anymore, but my brother seems to do the same thing, and he's going to acting school right now, so I'm honestly just the only one who is a little bit off. But in my spare time, I like to draw. Sometimes when I have time, which is not too often. But I mean, that's it, I guess. Just draw.
I never knew that about you, so I wanted to figure that out. So
yeah.
think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We know you're busy during this week, so thanks for joining us, and best of luck trying to make sure that you guys are as a team down in Orlando.
Thank you so much, guys.
So there you go. Jordan and Jordan will finish up the podcast after this. Welcome back in here to the Cowgirl Coverage podcast. We're going to keep you long today, okay? We know we're probably right around an hour mark right now, but we got to talk about softball right now. A few things we want to get into. First of all, coming off the Oklahoma sweep, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but Oklahoma is one of the best college softball teams ever this year. As I said, I'm not going to pretend that I've been watching a ton of softball. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the overarching voice coming down from the heavens on softball, because I'm not an expert. But in the little bit that I've watched over the past 3-ish years, Sydney Romero is the best softball player I've ever seen. She didn't do anything flashy this weekend, but she just, the way she leads, the way she carries herself around the field, she looks like she knows that she's good. She gives off, it's almost like LeBron. Like when LeBron steps onto a court, LeBron thinks he's the best player on the court. I think Romero thinks that. When she steps on the field, she thinks she's the best player on the field, and she's right.
Yeah, and I know this is a Cowgirl Coverage podcast, but I got to give some praise to OU. You mentioned it, hit the nail around the head. One of the best college softball teams ever. ESPN was there. Like a writer from ESPN was there, Jake Trotter, to cover on Sunday, because they were tied the all-time winning streak record, 38 straight, set by Arizona, I think, in the 90s. And this is a team that they all think they're the best, and they are. And it's something that Coach KSC talked about afterward, that Patty Gasso down there at OU has done something where usually you see a lot of everybody sees teams at the top that have a lot of talent. This is a team with a lot of talent and a lot of toughness, and they know how to dig deep whenever things aren't going their way. This is a better team than the one they had with Warren Chamberlain and Kalani Ricketts, which I thought was never going to be matched. So this is a team that I said at the beginning of the year, I thought OS is going to get one. I did not realize that this is going to be the best OU team ever. So any other year maybe, but not this year.
And then the All Big 12 awards came out. The superlative awards came out, and it was superlatively OU. OU, some would say OU bias. The fact of the matter is they have the best coach. They have the best pitcher. They have the best player. They have the best fielder. They have the best. They have everything. And then obviously they had the freshman of the year as well. They also have the freshman of the year as well. But the Cowgirls didn't go unnoticed. Some people would probably be a little angry that Texas has 5 and OSU has 4 in the top 2 teams. But look, collectively, Oklahoma State is a much better team than Texas. I'm not so sure Texas doesn't have better players, but the better team is OSU. So that's what, if you're married to these postseason awards and they make that big of a difference to you, okay, I think you're focusing on the wrong things. If you're a fan out there that is really angry about this, to me you shouldn't be. To me you should be saying, oh yeah, well, that's a testament to Coach Gajewski. That's a testament to the collective, because this team is better than Texas. But Texas has better players, and I think you can have both, right? So I had no problem with that. Shao Bayless, no doubters on the first team, no brainers there. I was worried that Michaela Richburg was not going to get recognized for the great season. She was. I think second team is fine for her. Maddie Sue, a solid year, probably not quite as good as she wanted, but still second team. I was good with that as well. Clakeley, you could argue. Maybe this weekend against OU might have put a dent in that a little bit, but you could argue. I could hear an argument for Clakeley to be on the second team, and then for the freshman team, just round it out here, and then I'll get your thoughts. I thought Naomi might have more of a chance to get unanimous than Factor did, just because Factor's numbers in the Big 12 are a little lower than her numbers overall. But both those two had phenomenal freshman years, and obviously I think it's going to be fun to watch. I believe it's Lyons from OU, the shortstop for them, and Kylie Naomi just duke it out at shortstop for the next 4 years. That's going to be a ton of fun to watch, because those two are just supremely talented.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, with Texas having more, Texas is a program that in any program they have, any sport they have, they're going to have blue chip recruits and those 5 stars. Oklahoma State prides itself on, in any sport, being the underdog. It's that cowgirl culture we talk about a lot, and look at these the ones who got nominated. I mean, other than Samantha Shao, who coming out of high school was the big time. Who is going to be like out of this group? You see, who is ones that you thought, oh man, they're going to be all Big 12 here in a couple of years. Can't really think of anything. Cheyenne Factor, maybe. That's about it.
Maybe Naomi, maybe.
Oh yeah, maybe Naomi. But looking at the first and second team, all great stories. Sam Clakley, coming out of Carthage, Texas, went to UTA. She was another long line of transfer pitchers you got from mid-majors, and she turned out to be, having an amazing story. She battles diabetes. She's incredible out there in the circle. Michelle Richburg is one of my favorite stories of all time. Coming from, she builds that Oklahoma pipeline, and something that Kenny Gassie's doing that, right now, Petty Gassi is getting kind of pretty much the best year in, year out, other than Cheyenne Factor and Sidney Pinton, who kind of just went the other way a little bit. But he's telling people like Chelsea Alexander and Michelle Richburg that if you aren't getting offers, I'll come look at you, and you can have a career here, and you can become an all Big 12 player here, because I'm willing to take those risks on players like you. And she's shown up for it. She's had an incredible sophomore season. So there's these great stories that come with these players. Riley Bayless, coming out of Kansas City, went to Northeastern up there in Miami. Great in JUCO, but again, she was a JUCO transfer. So they're not really these great players coming out of high school, but what this coaching staff has done shows you that this team is able to find diamonds in the rough and turn them into great players.
I mean, even Shao, transfer from a mid-major, really. I mean, no. That obviously a low blow to Texas A&M. Texas A&M struggled this year. Okay, there's no other way to put it. They were, I think, last place in the SEC. I think they were 13th in the SEC. So did not do well this year. Didn't mean that. I was just kidding. But it was a rough year for them. But no, you're absolutely right when you're talking about the journey of a lot of these girls and just now. I mean, Factor, Naomi. This is the first real line of Pennington last year. This is the first real group of high touted recruits, and I'm sure Springfield and Sprang were probably fairly highly recruited out of high school, but those are two that you didn't get out of high school. Those are two that you got via transfer that will be coming back next year as well. So wanted to touch on that because I thought, they should have been rewarded. Obviously, Shao and Bayless, those are two that are going to suck to lose, even though it feels like you just got them. Shao you did just get, but Bayless even, it feels like you just got her. She's one of those where it feels like she just entered the program, but it also feels like she's been here for 10 years. She's one of those players. So they're going to miss them next year, but I think there is plenty on the horizon to take their places. But before we talk about taking places, got some softball left to play here. We'll get into it here. I guess this weekend, really quickly, we did this on the radio. Just really quickly, I'm going to run through some scenarios. You tell me if they're going to host a super, a regional, or if they're not going to host at all. You just tell me that. That's how we'll approach the Big 12 tournament. And then I want to bring up this article that you had sent to me about. I'll pull it back up. The one that you had sent to me about potential. We'll get to that in just a second. Yeah, Softball America. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to finish with that because that did not make me happy. Okay, first scenario. Sweep the whole thing. You beat Texas, you beat Iowa State, and you beat OU.
Yeah. If you do that, then you are hosting a super regional, my friend. You're number 12 in the RPI right now. If you beat the number 16 in the RPI, and Iowa State is around like 45, 50, so they're not a bad team. So beating them, and then obviously number one team in the RPI, you would be going up into the top 8. You'd be a 40-win team at that point. So that would be the ultimate scenario, and you'd be playing in Oklahoma for the rest of the postseason.
All right, some more realistic ones. You beat Texas, you beat Iowa State, you lose to OU.
Beat Texas, lose Iowa State, lose to OU.
Beat Texas, beat Iowa State, lose to OU.
You still be hosting regional. You would not be a super regional team, though. You'd be around the 10 seed, I believe.
Beat Texas, lose to Iowa State, and then by tiebreaker, we'll say they still play OU.
They still play OU. I don't know if that's possible, but we'll see. They would be the 14 seed. They drop maybe 2.
obviously, if they lose to Texas and Iowa State and beat a Kansas, does that Kansas win help you out at all, or are you not hosting?
If you lost all three?
No, if you beat Kansas at the end, but you lose to Iowa State and you lose to Texas.
You'd be 16. I'd say you drop 4, but still be in it.
Lose to Texas, beat Iowa State, lose to Texas Tech.
Texas beat Iowa State. They'd be the 15. Well, no. If it's Texas Tech they lose to, they might drop out because Texas Tech might take their spot.
So then we'll make it easy here. I think we're together. If they lose to Texas, beat Iowa State, and beat Texas Tech, they'll still be hosting a regional. They might slip a spot or two, but they'll still be hosting a regional.
Yeah. If they lose to Texas Tech, lose 2 games this weekend, and one loses to Texas Tech, I think they might drop out because Texas Tech's right on the cusp.
Should be interesting to see how that all plays out. All right, Softball America came out with their bracketology. Yes, everyone does bracketology. Literally every sport does it. You just don't know it because you don't pay enough attention to it. Well, we're here to shed light on these bad bracketologists. That was mean. But anyways, there are 16 regionals. There's 4 teams there. That means there's a 64-team field. OU's obviously going to be the number 1 seed. We can go through this a little bit. I want to highlight Oklahoma State. So Softball America is currently assuming that this is what I think. Softball America is assuming they lose to Texas and they win the other 2 games this weekend. Talking about Iowa State and Texas Tech. Those would be the other 2 teams they played. They have them dropping down to a 13 seed, hosting the regional across from Alabama. Alabama would be in a group with Marist, Ohio State, and North Carolina. Oklahoma State, Tulsa, Mizzou, Southeast Mizzou State. Those are 4 teams all in about the top 48 in the RPI. Now, if I'm doing my math correctly, that is not the correct spread in terms of how strong the team should be in one regional. Now, I understand the 13 is not the best regional. It's also not the worst regional. Let's keep that in mind. There's also 3 regionals below you, and Oklahoma State really gets punished in this scenario. That's Mizzou, Tulsa, both top 30 RPI teams. Southeast Missouri State is one of the better mid-major teams. So I just feel like this would be a tough draw if Oklahoma State indeed does get this draw.
I think they're taking the regional name to who literally here, right? Because they're picking teams all within like 200 miles. I don't think that would happen. I'm still going with the fact that Oklahoma State's going to beat Texas and Iowa State and stay at 12, maybe move up to 11 or 10. But I don't think that they would put all those in one basket. They would probably spread it around a bit because that would be a bit too unfair, I would say.
Well, here's my other thing. When you're talking about this specific one, let me real quickly here, Jordan, pull up the Softball RPI. I think this is important to consider because, again, Softball America is making some bold predictions as far as what's going on this weekend for the reason that they put this out. So they put this out, and obviously it's like, okay, this is what they think is going to happen. Well, you're making predictions because currently in the RPI, Tennessee, James Madison, Kentucky, all below you. Let's look here. James Madison, above them. Kentucky, above OSU. Tennessee, above OSU. These are 3 teams that are currently behind you in the RPI that you are making the assumption that are going to jump you in the RPI. So I understand why Softball America does this. They may think, well, if these teams do enough in the SEC, and obviously the SEC, a very highly ranked RPI conference.
I want to see James Madison jumping.
And that's my thing. Is like, sure, if Oklahoma State falls down, but do you even know what the CAA is?
No.
No one does. No one knows what conference James Madison is in. No one has any idea. No one could name another team in that. No one could name James Madison if they weren't ranked here at the top near the top of the RPI. It's just like, to me, I struggle with a bracketology that is making assumptions on wins and losses. Every time, like, let's talk about basketball. Does Joe Lunardi make his bracketology based on whether you might win in the future? No, he makes it based on what's going on right now. So if you're going to release a bracketology, and again, I don't want to cut down Softball America. They do a good job covering the sport, I think, overall. I don't agree with some things that they put out, but overall, I think they're one of the premier or organizations that covers softball. So I don't want to cut them down too much. But here's my thing. If you're going to release a bracketology right now that is based on right now, don't make assumptions. No. Tell us who's the number 12 team in the RPI right now. It's Oklahoma State. And so put Oklahoma State as the 12 seed. Make their regional a little bit easier. When you look at the top 8 seeds, according to this and according to the RPI as well, the top 8 seeds, OU, Washington, UCLA, Arizona, Florida State, Texas, Alabama, Minnesota. You look at that. Which of those sites would you be most comfortable going to? And I know, like OU, they're probably not going to go to OU. Hope not. Probably not going to go to Minnesota. Getting to 9 is going to be a bit of a task. But, overall, looking at the other 6 teams, of those 6, where do you feel most comfortable going?
I mean, obviously Texas, but I don't know if that – I mean, it might happen, but you'd be happy going down to Austin, I think, winning 2 out of 3 there. Outside of that, I'd say Alabama. I know it's an SEC team and you're going there, and usually things don't happen very well if you're going to super regional and SEC country, but I think out of those teams, Alabama is your best shot outside Texas.
Interesting. If they get Tulsa in here, is that like what? Because it's a real possibility that Tulsa ends up here in Stillwater. Well, I mean, it's got to be a little bit unnerving with some of the lack of success you've had against Tulsa, right? Yeah.
The good thing for Oklahoma State would be it's a double elimination regional. So if you drop a mulligan, you can come back and win it. But I think it's going to happen. I don't think Missouri or maybe Southeast Missouri State. I don't think Missouri's coming to town, but I think Tulsa probably is coming to town. Just the fact that, hey, it's less money for the NCAA to spend, probably get a bigger crowd, and it's going to be a tough test for the Cowgirls.
No doubt about it. Well, Jordan, we should probably wrap it up here. We'll get more in this, obviously, next week. We'll break down the regionals, I believe. Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. We'll and who knows, where Oklahoma State ends up, or better yet, let's talk in positive terms. We're going to assume that they're hosting a regional. It'll be interesting to see who they welcome here to Stillwater. So we'll get out of here. We kept you too long. That's all right, though. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. I know it went about an hour 20 this week, but hope we gave you some value. I think we broke down a lot of sports that we needed to get caught up on, including softball, golf, equestrian, that news, women's tennis. We gave a deep dive in women's tennis, and we'll continue to do that next week. Hopefully the Cowgirls are still a player in that next week. Jordan, appreciate you, man. Episode 21 in the book.
Yep, thank you.
Jordan Bishop, Jordan King, Cowgirl Coverage Podcast, Triple Play Sports Podcast Network.